Hey there, welcome back to another review, this time of the 2017 action thriller Baby Driver. Now, Baby Driver is a film that got a lot of rave reviews when it came out, and I decided to finally check it out recently, and I liked it, but I thought it was a little bit of a letdown, and ultimately I just thought it was a decent to above average film for me personally. I felt the action sequences when they were there were technically impressive, but they didn't really get my blood pumping that much. I also felt that the supporting cast was kind of weak. I think the way that they were written really didn't do that much to really make me care about any of them, except for Baby's girlfriend. Jamie Foxx's character is just an asshole. And Jamie Foxx did a fine job with the performance, but he's still an asshole. Jon Hamm's character and his wife, there's not much to them. And Kevin Spacey plays the same character he plays in pretty much almost every movie where he's trying to play a mentor slash villain or whatever, or so on. And yeah, it was one of those films where the main character was great and his arc was fantastic, and I really was drawn into the film when he was on the screen and when his story was unfolding, but when all this other stuff was happening, I really could care less. I guess it's one of those things where heist films aren't really my biggest cup of tea. And this is essentially a heist movie. I don't mind the Ocean's films, like Ocean's 11, Ocean's 12, but I'm not like super huge on them. I like The Italian Job, and to be honest, I think The Italian Job, the remake with Mark Wahlberg, is pretty underrated nowadays. And if you want to talk about car chases, that film has this movie beat by a mile. That's a movie that I don't feel gets enough credit for how much fun it is and how technically sound it is in terms of its stunts and its car chases. And if you want to compare a film from 2017, The Hitman's Bodyguard, which I will share my thoughts on that one pretty soon, I felt that was a better movie than Baby Driver. Definitely a better action film. It had more exciting car chases in it, especially the finale. And it was one of those films that didn't get all the praise, but Baby Driver got the majority of it. And of course, if we compare Baby Driver to something like Drive, it's no contest. I mean, Drive outraces and beats Baby Driver any day of the week. But I'm not saying Baby Driver is a bad film. I'm just saying I wasn't as blown away by the movie as a lot of other critics were. It's in my top list, but it's near the bottom. It's one of those films where it's not terrible, but I didn't love it. And I also felt that when it comes to Edgar Wright, this is one of my least favorite films that he's done. Now, I don't think it's on par with, for example, my absolute least favorite, which is Scott Pilgrim versus the World, but I would argue that this is definitely not in the same category as Hot Fuzz or Shaun of the Dead, or even The World's End, which The World's End was a little bit disappointing, but I would honestly rather watch that than Baby Driver. Something about Baby Driver just doesn't resonate with me. It's one of those films I watched, but the more I think about it, the more I just think it was okay. I just thought it was a decent film with some good performances by Ansel Elgort, and I believe the actress who plays his girlfriend is Lily James. So I thought they did a great job. They had wonderful chemistry with each other. You really bought that they were falling in love. Lily James is also a spitting image of Jennifer Jason Leigh. It's crazy. She really does look like Jennifer Jason Leigh. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And there was a few other, supporting role guys. You had Jon Bernthal, who was one of Doc's gang, who mocks Baby constantly. He's kind of an asshole. There were some fun bits in between, that kind of stuff where they're trying to mock Baby, but he's actually pretty smart. And even though he's listening to his music, he can still hear the plan and whatever, and makes Jon Bernthal look like a fool, or Jamie Foxx or whatever, and none of them are really going to have it. It was really nice to see Paul Williams from Phantom of the Paradise in a bit role as the Butcher. And I did like the music choices. I felt the soundtrack was definitely a high note. I really did love how the film was edited. I felt the film really did sync up with all of the songs that were chosen during action sequences and chase scenes really well. And that's one of the main things about it that I like is how well it's edited by Paul Machlis and Jonathan Amos. So, and Edgar Wright does a good job with the direction as well. But you can tell, like, Edgar Wright is not really a car chase guy. Like, Hot Fuzz had some action sequences and some car bits. I think it might have had a car chase or two in it. But Hot Fuzz was first and foremost a comedy. Baby Driver is more of a straightforward, serious action thriller. As a comedy, I didn't think it was that funny. I guess it was considered a comedy, and by some critics. I mean, it even got a nomination for Best Actor for Motion Picture Musical or Comedy for Ansel Elgort at the Golden Globe Awards. But I'm like, this isn't really that much of a comedy. I don't understand the comedy aspect. But that's just my personal opinion. Like, I didn't really laugh that much at this movie when it comes to its comedy. There were a couple moments that I chuckled, but this wasn't a laugh out loud hilarious movie like Hot Fuzz or Shaun of the Dead. So, the film was directed by Edgar Wright and written by Edgar Wright, and I think maybe Edgar might have, I think he could have benefited from another writer to kind of tune some things up a little bit, soup the story up a little more, especially with the supporting characters. Really give the film a clear-cut villain, because there really wasn't a clear-cut villain in this. It could be Kevin Spacey. No, it isn't. No, it's this. It's Jamie Foxx. No, he dies. It's Jon Bernthal. No, it's not him. And then it's just Jon Hamm at the end, because we need some kind of conflict at the end for Baby to get involved with his girlfriend. And I guess you could say there really is no real villain other than the jobs that Baby is doing. Like the path that Baby is taking is the biggest villain of all, and so he kind of does eventually beat that in the end, because he takes responsibility and goes to jail. But it's one of those things, it's like it just kind of falls a little bit flat for me. It kind of has a little bit of a flat tire. The original score by Stephen Price, it's there. I would say the film, though, really relies more heavily upon actual songs sung by artists and bands for the soundtrack, and that does work really well. And this is a nice showcase for Ansel Elgort. I have to be honest, I liked the film more than I thought it would, because the trailers really didn't do anything for me. I thought the trailers were not that impressive. I thought Ansel Elgort in some of the trailers looked like he was miscast. It looked like he was going to be a boring, bland, white bread lead. And I was pleasantly surprised by Ansel Elgort. I thought he had a nice bit of charisma and personality. He was easily the best character out of the whole film. He was the most interesting character. You really did sympathize with him, with what happened to him when he was a kid, with the car accident, with that where he ended up losing his mom, and that's why he has all these scars on his face, and that's why he also has to listen to music all the time, because he has really bad tinnitus. So that was a nice plot point. I thought that was actually pretty cool and pretty inventive. I thought that was easily the best idea that the film had going for it. But I know that critics are saying it's some brilliant screenplay, and I'm like, the only thing that I thought was really that brilliant was that aspect of it. The fact that Baby, in order to focus, listens to music all the time. And the film actually does rely upon music, the same music that Baby listens to, to help move certain sequences along, and add certain moods and emotion and atmosphere to those scenes. And I feel that's great. And I think that is a nice touch, and I think that's something that the film definitely does have going for it. But I just felt a lot of the other stuff, like I said, it just fell flat. It was a bit of a flat tire for me. But the romance aspect I thought was sweet. I thought and Baby and Deborah were a really nice couple. And the action bits when they were there were some car chases that I thought were decent enough. But, you know, the gunplay and stuff like that, it's not much to it. It's the kind of stuff that you've seen in a lot of other movies. There's like one of the girls, Eliza Gonzalez, who's playing Darling. She goes in with two guns and tries to shoot at the cops, and she gets shot. I like the fact that the film didn't really rely on a lot of filters or anything like that for the cinematography or the direction. The cinematography by Bill Pope, which was definitely a solid job of cinematography. It wasn't mind blowing or anything, but it definitely did add a certain. I'm trying to think of the right word. Like, it definitely did add a certain feel and look to the film. It had this slick and stylish look, and much like the cars that were used quite prominently in the film. And it didn't rely on a lot of CGI either, which I really did appreciate. But a lot of the car chases and stuff, they didn't go. They focused more on a more realistic approach, which for a film like this, it just makes the car chases kind of dull. Like, the music was really well done, and it really did help those scenes in terms of making them pop. But when you just look at the stunt work, it's not really anything that is really that spectacular. There's some drifts and there's some things like that, and some nice driving. But I mean, compare the chases in this to something like The French Connection, or the car chase in Cobra, or the chases in Fast and the Furious movies. It just really doesn't hold a candle to any of those films, and the film is very heavily reliant on these car chases. I even felt that the car chase in Jack Reacher with Tom Cruise, I felt that was better than any of the car chases in this. But that's just my personal opinion. And the running time, it's 113 minutes, so it's not 2 hours, but there are moments where it does feel like it kind of starts to drag a little bit, kind of starts to slow down a little bit too much for me personally. But it's a film that I don't mind. It's kind of a time waster for me because of Ansel Elgort, because of the soundtrack, because of the concept of the film, and because of how well it's edited and so on. And I think Baby is a nice character. He's a character that's doing stuff that's bad, that's not right, but he's got a heart. He's got a heart of gold. He's trying to do the right thing. The relationship he has with this man that he's a roommate with, I thought was really cool. His deaf foster father, played by C.J. Jones, I thought that really did humanize this character, and I also felt that the relationship he had with Deborah was also really strong. But that's really those are the main selling points for the film for me, and then there's other things that just prevent it from really kicking into overdrive and really taking home the gold, really going past the finish line and winning the race. I just felt it was one of those movies that had its moments. There were things about it that I really liked, but there's a lot of other stuff that I was kind of just meh on. But that's my personal opinion on Baby Driver. I don't really know what else to say, except thank you for watching, and as always, I will see you guys later. See ya.